When 40 Hell's Angels show up to thank the black woman who saved one of their own, the roar of motorcycles shattered the quiet town like thunder. 40 Hell's Angels descended like a storm, their leather jackets gleaming in the sun, patches boldly declaring their allegiance. They weren't here for a party, they were on a mission of gratitude. All eyes turned to the bright red door of Miss Carolyn's cafe as they pulled up, a powerful wave of thunderous engines and fierce faces. Who were they thanking, and why? The air crackled with a mix of fear and curiosity. This was no ordinary gathering, it felt like history reborn, a collision of worlds. Miss Carolyn, with her warm smile and soft laughter, had saved one of their own. The stories whispered in the hushed crowd told of a night filled with chaos, one where the weight of man's fear and honor twisted in a desperate knot. A fight had broken out at the bar down the street. A young angel, pinned beneath the weight of his misjudgments, faced the wrath of a man fueled by too much drink and too little sense. It was Carolyn, swift as a shadow, who dashed into the fray, pulling him back from the brink. Somehow, she saw past the tough exterior the tattoos and anger to the soul who needed saving. The tension grew, palpable like the storm clouds on the horizon. There were murmurs from the crowd. What are they planning? Will it end well? As the angels dismounted, their heavy boots thudding against the pavement echoed the heartbeat of the town. Would this be a moment of gratitude or a showdown? The air was thick with questions, each one buzzing through hearts and minds, gathering steam like the motorcycles that had brought them here. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the leader of the angels stepped up, his eyes fierce like that of a lion, the crowd held its breath. He raised a hand, leather smoothed over strong fingers. We are here to pay our debts, to honor a woman with courage. The words hung in the air, electrifying the moment. But what would follow? Would the gratitude be a bomb or a bombshell? Bystanders couldn't move, their bodies frozen, eyes glued to the unfolding saga, not daring to blink in fear of missing the punchline to this wild tale. Would Carolyn's bravery be met with respect, or would it spark a storm no one was ready to face? As the leader gestured towards the cafe, the tension thickened. What would happen next pressed on everyone's hearts, leaving them clutching their chests, waiting. The silence stretched tighter, feeling almost alive. The leader of the Hell's Angels, a man known simply as Thor, stepped forward, his boots crunching against the gravel. His presence commanded fear and respect, an embodiment of the strength and wildness of the group behind him. The crowd watched wide-eyed, caught between admiration for Miss Carolyn and fear of the notorious bikers. You saved one of ours, Thor continued, his voice low yet booming. You put yourself in harm's way, and that takes guts. The tension shifted, rippling through those gathered. It felt like an invitation and a threat all at once. From inside the cafe, Miss Carolyn remained blissfully unaware of the brewing storm outside. She was putting the finishing touches on a plate of pancakes, her kind heart evident in every flick of her wrist, her laughter echoing in the small space. But outside, her world was colliding with the raw, untamed energy of the motorcycle club. Then, from the back of the crowd, a familiar face broke through. It was Jimmy, the young angel whose life Carolyn had saved. He stumbled forward, eyes wide, caught somewhere between awe and horror. The memory of that chaotic night rushed back, the fists, shouts, and chaos swirling in his mind. I'm here, he stammered. I owe you my life, Carolyn. I wouldn't be here without you. A collective gasp swept through the onlookers. Carolyn was a protector in their small community, but to see her standing between the chaos of a Hell's Angels meetup and the vulnerability of a young man hit differently. Thor turned to Jimmy, and his expression softened minutely. You're lucky she was there. Not many would take that chance. He turned back to the cafe, his gaze sharp. We come to offer our thanks, but we also demand a respect that is earned. And we are here to celebrate a woman who should not only be honored for her courage but also protected. The crowd's whispers grew louder, disbelief mingling with curiosity. Miss Carolyn peeked out the door, only to meet the eyes of 40 leather-clad bikers, the stark contrast sending a jolt through her. Something told her they weren't here just for thanks, or safety. They'd want more from her than she could give. Thor, she called out, her voice steady despite the rapid pounding of her heart. What exactly do you mean? What do you want from me? A murmur swept through the angels, eyes darting nervously. Thor's expression hardened again, every eye locked onto him. It's not just gratitude. There are factions within the club that don't see it the same way we do. Some out here believe a woman should know her place. And they won't take kindly to you being their savior. Gasps echoed around her, the town folks realizing the implications. Carolyn felt her heart drop. Could their gratitude turn into a vendetta? She squared her shoulders, glancing again at Jimmy, whose breath came in sharp, nervous gasps. I need to know, Carolyn said, her voice low, but infectious determination flowed through her. Can you guarantee me protection from those who don't appreciate my role in saving you? Thor paused, his intense gaze reflecting the weight of the promise he might have to make. He let silence stretch, the air thickening with uncertainty. Consider me your shield, for now, he finally replied, though how heavy that promise would become hung in the balance. The town held its breath, the tension twisting tighter as hope battled with fear. In that moment, Carolyn realized that this was just the beginning. What lay ahead would require more than bravery, it would require alliances forged in shadows. As she stepped further outside, letting courage guide her, she knew one thing for sure, nothing would ever be the same again, and with that knowledge came a new dread. Would she still have a place in her own town as the storm gathered? The next moment decided it all. A loud crash echoed behind them, a flash of leather and metal skidding into view. An unfamiliar group of riders appeared, their markers and menacing scowls sending shivers down Carolyn's spine. And as they approached, one undeniable question pressed in the air: who were these newcomers, and what did they want from the woman who had dared to reach beyond fear? The rumble of engines filled the air, drowning out the anxious whispers of the crowd. The new riders, clad in dark leathers, rolled closer, their presence thick with menace. Carolyn felt her heart race, each beat echoing the growing uncertainty around her. Who were they? Were they allies or foes? Thor stepped forward instinctively, his frame towering as he shielded Carolyn with his body. The tension was electric, buzzing with the potential for violence. She caught a glimpse of the newcomers' patches, different colors and symbols that marked them as part of a rival gang. Whatever this was, it wasn't good. Get behind me, Carolyn, Thor barked, his voice low and commanding. She hesitated, fear swirling inside her like a tornado, but the urgent command pulled her forward, closer to the protection of the man whose presence was both terrifying and reassuring. He growled a warning, a low rumble rising from deep within him, causing the tension to thicken. Who the hell are you? The new leader, a wiry man with an intense glare, emerged from the pack, his arrogance cutting through the air like a knife. We don't take kindly to outsiders thinking they can play hero in our territory. The crowd gasped collectively, tension rippling like a wave. This was more than just a scuffle, it was a full-blown ambush. The onlookers backed away, their faces painted with confusion and fear. Carolyn's hands trembled as she stood, her stomach twisting into knots. Look, we're just here to Thor began, but the newcomer cut him off with a venomous laugh. Just here to what? Play house with your pet girl? His voice dripped with sarcasm, and anger bubbled under Carolyn's skin. Jimmy squeezed her wrist, grounding her in the chaos. Carolyn, you can't let them intimidate you, he whispered urgently. She didn't feel brave, she felt out of her depth, drowning in a sea of leather and dark intentions. The rival leader stepped closer, narrowing his eyes. You think saving one of our men makes you special? You don't belong in our world. Miss Carolyn straightened, fire igniting within her. You don't know anything about me. I saved Jimmy because it was the right thing to do, and I want to apologize for it. The crowd's reaction was instant, a murmur of disbelief mixed with accorded admiration. Thor shot her a surprised glance, his brows furrowed, but he held his ground. The rival gang leader smirked, unfazed. What's right and wrong doesn't mean squat out here. You're playing a dangerous game, lady. He turned his back on her, signaling his crew to flank him. In that moment, a fierce realization struck Carolyn. This wasn't just about her. It was about standing up for what she believed in. She couldn't back down. Not now, but before she could voice her thoughts, the leader turned back, his eyes cold and calculating. If you're wanting to play savior, you'd better be prepared for the cost, because we're coming for you, and anyone who allies with you. Silence hung thick in the air, suffocating and heavy. The gravity of his words settled over them like a shroud. Let us go, men, he called, the threat hanging in the air as they backed away, engines roaring to life. You better choose your side carefully, Carolyn. This ain't over. As they sped off, Carolyn's heart raced, but this time it was mixed with something else, adrenaline. She could feel the weight of her decision pressing down on her. Thor turned to her, eyes fierce yet curious. You have guts, I'll give you that. But guts alone won't hold you up in a fight. You need to prepare. We can't let them think they can intimidate us. Not now. The crowd began to disperse, the shock of the encounter still resonating. Carolyn knew it wouldn't just end there. With each encounter, she was pulled deeper into a world she never planned on being part of. As she squared her shoulders and faced the brewing storm, a single truth settled in her mind: she couldn't back down. She had already crossed a line, and there was no turning back, and in the following days, she would learn just how far she was willing to go for those she deemed worthy of her protection, and what costly decisions she'd have to make along the way. But as night fell, a sense of dread lingered in the air. Would they come back, or was this just the beginning of something much worse? Carolyn's breath hitched at the thought, her mind racing with possibilities. Carolyn lay awake, the shadows in her room stretching like claws around her. The echoes of the gang's threats clawed at her consciousness, dragging her deeper into the darkness. She blinked against the relentless night, trying to dispel the fear that wrapped around her chest like barbed wire. She could still hear the roar of the motorcycles, the mocking laughter of the rival leader. Panic fluttered in her stomach. What did they mean by preparing for the cost? It was a question that gnawed at her, a cold dread creeping into the corners of her mind. Would they really come back? And if they did, was she ready? Morning arrived, pale and gray, yet Carolyn felt no comfort in it. She pulled on a worn sweatshirt, its fabric soft against her skin, and clutched her phone in one hand like it was a talisman. The world outside was waking up, but within her, uncertainty raged. She needed to know what this meant, needed clarity amid chaos. Stepping out into the early light, Carolyn caught sight of Thor and Jimmy talking in tense whispers near their bikes. The sight brought her some solace, but it was short-lived. She could see the worry etched on their faces. She approached them, the gravel crunching under her feet feeling like a drumbeat heralding doom. "What's the plan?" she asked, trying to steady her voice despite the tremble in her hands. "They'll retaliate." "That's a given," Thor replied, his voice low and steady. "We need to make sure we're not caught off guard. We're looking into this rival gang, who they are, what they want." Carolyn nodded, feeling the gravity of the moment settle within her. "I can help. I know some of the neighborhood kids. They see things. Hear things. They might know something." Jimmy frowned. "You have to be careful, Carolyn. Those guys, they won't hesitate to hurt anyone who stands in their way." "I won't wait to be hurt," she breathed, a fire igniting within her. "I need to know what's coming." Thor studied her, surprise flickering in his intense eyes. "You're serious?" "Absolutely," she said, meeting his gaze. "I can't back down now. I want tea." Meanwhile, across town, the rival gang lounged outside their dimly lit bar, the atmosphere charged. Carolyn didn't know it yet, but their leader was plotting. He was watching her, studying her defiance with a calculating look. With every passing moment, resentment brewed, and a twisted sense of honor burned in him. As Carolyn rallied the neighborhood kids, each face she saw sparked a memory of their laughter, their shared moments. She recruited a handful of the bravest, breaking the heavy fog of fear together. They were naive but determined, full of spirit just like she was. "What do we do?" one of the boys asked, adrenaline making him tremble. "You listen and report. If you see anything odd, you come to me," Carolyn instructed, her heart pounding with purpose. "And no matter what they say, don't let them intimidate you. We're stronger together." Back at the gang's bar, whispers danced through the air as their leader raised a glass, a threat passing among them like a dark ritual. "They think they can play with us," he sneered, the bitterness sharpening his words. "Let us show them what happens when you meddle in our business." As the sun dipped low in the sky, Carolyn's resolve was matched only by the growing darkness around her. She reported back to Thor and Jimmy, the adrenaline racing through her. They strategized late into the night, the stakes rising with each passing hour. And just when hope began to flicker, the air crackled again, a disturbance rolling in from the distance. The rumble of engines, louder this time, weaving a sinister tune that sent a chill down her spine. Were they here? No, it couldn't be. She could still turn back. But Carolyn felt that same fire flickering inside her. She couldn't run, not now. Not when her world was erupting into chaos. The adrenaline surged. This was either going to be their downfall or their moment of vengeance, but who would stand with them when the dust settled? And what would become of them all? The engines roared closer, each sound a promise of confrontation. The rumble grew louder, shaking the ground beneath Carolyn's feet as flashes of headlights pierced the gathering gloom. Every nerve screamed for her to run, but her feet felt glued to the earth. Thor and Jimmy shared a tense glance, then turned to her, their expressions a mix of determination and concern. "Get behind the bikes," Thor shouted, pulling Carolyn close. She felt the heat of his body, shared a fleeting glance with him that spoke volumes. Tension twisted in her gut. This wasn't just a confrontation, it was the storm before the war. The motorcycles rolled into view, a chaotic swarm of leather and chrome. They lined up in quick succession, engines revving like a beast ready to roar. The threat loomed larger as one of the riders dismounted and strode forward. It was their leader, the one who had laughed at Carolyn the night before. "Look who we have here," he called, voice drifting like poisoned honey. "The little girl thinks she's a hero now." Laughter erupted from the gang, sharp and mocking. Carolyn's heart sank. She felt the kids behind her tense up, their youthful bravado faltering. "Shut your mouth," Carolyn shouted, surprising herself with her own ferocity. "You think this is a game? You're bulldozing through lives like they're nothing." The laughter stopped, replaced by an astonished silence. She had thrown the gauntlet before them, her pulse racing in response. "Cute," the leader replied, a twisted smile creeping across his face. "What's the plan, Cupcake? This isn't a schoolyard. Learn to keep your threats to yourself," Thor snapped, stepping forward, defensive. "You want to play? Then let us talk." The rival leader's gaze darted between Carolyn and Thor, amusement sparking in his eyes like flint. "I'd rather not talk talkings for the weak. But let us not interrupt the little show. I'm all for some fun." He motioned to his gang, who hunched over their bikes, revving their engines as the sound echoed ominously through the parking lot. Carolyn felt the strength of their collective fear ripple behind her, but she stood firm. She did not register the glance shared between Thor and Jimmy, a silent understanding passing in the air. This was a test, a crossroads where everything would shift. "You want fun?" Carolyn called out, her voice rising above the din. "How about I give you something to really fear?" The rival leader's smile faltered just slightly. Your bravado is impressive, girl. But what do you think you're going to do? Gather your little army and scare me off? Before she could answer, one of the kids, a boy named Kyle, stepped up, a spark of courage ignited in his eyes. We're not scared of you. We've got each other, and that's enough. Suddenly, her youthful recruits grouped around her, their faces a mix of determination and defiance, the earlier fear dissipating like fog in sunlight. Carolyn felt the tide turning. They had united, grounded in their shared resolve, and their strength radiated through her. The rival leader's expression morphed from mockery to something darker. So this is how you want to play? I'll remember this moment. You're painting a target on your back. Carolyn's heart raced, not from fear but exhilaration. The line had been drawn. She was no longer just a girl against a gang, she was a beacon for the kids standing alongside her, and she would not let that beacon dim. And then, like a switch flipping, the leader barked an order. Let us get them. Chaos erupted. Engines roared, tires screeched, and Carolyn's breath hitched, the world suddenly blurring as the rival gang charged toward them. She moved instinctively, shoving the kids behind her, instinctively protecting them. The first blow landed metal on flesh, a club swinging with sickening force through the air. Carolyn felt the shock reverberate in her bones as she barely managed to duck, adrenaline flooding her system like fire. What had she started? The tension tightened like a vice, and while she fought back, the terror clawing at her throat, a flicker of hope ignited. Maybe this was the fight she was destined for, her moment to confront not just the gang but her own fears. But in the midst of chaos, a figure on a motorcycle sped forward, blocking the line of attack. A glimpse of a familiar emblem painted on leather flashed by. Carolyn's heart skipped a sudden influx of hope. Who would come riding into the storm? As the clash erupted, each second felt like eternity, each movement critical. A new player was in town, and little did Carolyn know, her night was only beginning. The roar of the engines pierced through the clamor of the chaos like a battle horn. Carolyn's heart raced. Was it possible? Could they be here to help? The figure on the motorcycle loomed large, a silhouette against the fading light. She squinted as the rider drew closer, cutting through the throng of gang members like a knife through air. The emblem was unmistakable. The bright colors of the Hells Angels flashed vibrant against the backdrop of night. With a swift maneuver, the rider dismounted, shaking off the dust of the road with a confidence that sent shivers down Carolyn's spine. The newcomer was a woman, her face set in grim determination, eyes fierce and unwavering. Cheers erupted from the gang. She recognized friends of her late father. Step back! She roared, her voice slicing through the chaos like a beacon. The rival gang froze in shock, stunned by her sudden appearance. Who the hell are you? The rival leader spat, momentarily lost for words. I'm your worst nightmare, the woman replied, an icy calmness in her tone. Her leather jacket glinted under the headlights as she stepped forward, her fists clenching tightly. And you're trespassing. Carolyn felt a wave of relief crash over her. The weight of fear that had settled in her chest began to lift. She exchanged quick glances with Thor and Jimmy, who seemed just as bewildered but undeniably grateful. The rival gang glanced between their leader and the newcomer, uncertainty rippling through their ranks. With each passing moment, the tension sharpened, thick enough to slice through. Is this a joke? The leader chuckled, though his bravado wavered. You think a single gal in a leather jacket can take us all on? I'm not alone, she shot back, waving a hand to encompass the gathered Hells Angels behind her. They filtered in around her, faces set in grim lines, their collective attitude radiating strength and unyielding loyalty. Back down, the woman continued, her glare flickering toward Carolyn and the kids. Or face the consequences. Choose wisely. At that moment, chaos hung in the air. The motorcycles kept rumbling ominously, the threat of violence close enough to taste, yet something different pulsed through morale. Carolyn felt it, a united front, bolstered by the presence of these seasoned fighters, her heart matching the rhythm of their engines. The rival leader hesitated, his bravado faltering against the unyielding resolve of the gang that now surrounded Carolyn and her recruits. You don't want to do this, he sneered, but the confidence had melted from his voice. Trust me, the woman said, stepping closer, her body a shield for the youth behind her. You'll regret crossing us tonight. A beat of silence stretched before the tension snapped like a worn rubber band. In a heartbeat, the rival gang sprang back, retreating with sudden panic, their cowardice surfacing. Carolyn's breath caught in her throat, a wild mix of elation and disbelief swirling inside her. She stood wrapped in disbelief, heart pounding as she felt the heat of victory rise. The tide had turned, yet, before the unfamiliar calm settled deep into the night, scars of violence remained, the lingering threat still wavered like shadows. What if this wasn't over? What if the leader schemed for revenge? Who was this woman with the Hell's Angels, and how would they respond next? Now, let us talk, the stranger said, eyes scanning the crowd for any hint of conflict. What is going on here? The air crackled with unresolved tension, questions floating like unripe fruit, and as Carolyn opened her mouth to explain, a chill swept over her. Was this truly over? In the stillness that followed, a heart-stopping thought seeped in. How did this new alliance change everything? What price lay ahead in their newfound war? Before she could voice it, Jimmy interrupted, his face pale. There is something behind you, and just like that, the shadow of impending danger loomed once more, leaving Carolyn gasping for answers with uncertainty prickling at her spine. Would they survive whatever darkness lay just beyond the reach of the headlights? Carolyn turned, her heart pounding in her chest as dread clutched at her throat. The rumble of engines seemed to shrink into a distant roar, a bad omen rolling in like a dark wave. She strained to see through the shadows, panic and adrenaline sharpening her senses. The flickering lights from the motorcycles seemed to dance, morphing into shapes both familiar and terrifying. Focus! Focus! The Hell's Angels woman barked, her voice cutting through the tension. Carolyn barely caught her name. Jade, the whispers said, but the aura radiating around her felt like a commanding force, a talisman against impending darkness. Jimmy's wide eyes darted into the darkness behind them. I think they're coming back. He stammered, pointing. Suddenly, out of the shadows, figures emerged. Not just one or two, but a whole swarm of menacing silhouettes, members of the rival gang, now emboldened by the hope of a second chance at dominance. They were back, packing anger and vengeance like weapons, their gazes dark with intent. The rival leader stepped forward again, less swaggering than before but no less deadly. You really thought you could scare us off? We just regrouped, he spat, fists clenched at his sides. Not smart making enemies of the Hell's Angels, Jade warned, eyes fierce and unwavering, locking onto the leader with a defiance that radiated like heat. You've got one chance to walk away. The rivals hesitated, glancing at each other, uncertainty spiking in the air. Carolyn felt a tremor of fear and hope mingle within her. Would they back down again? Or were they too far gone to retreat? Thor, moving closer to Carolyn, whispered urgently, we need to get out of here. His breath came in quick, shallow bursts, his eyes darted around as if searching for an escape route. No. Jade's voice drowned out the chaos. We stand our ground. Just then, one of the rival gang members broke ranks, a fierce grin cracking through the tension. You think you're tough, lady? He sneered. We've got numbers. With a sudden surge of reckless courage, Carolyn stepped out from behind Jade. And we have heart. She declared, raising her voice. Surrounded by Hell's Angels and filled with a fierce tenacity she didn't know she had, she felt a strange power coursing through her. The rival leader barked out a bitter laugh. Heart doesn't win fights. It gets you killed. His words hung heavy, slicing through the air with a chilling clarity. An echo needed no other reply, the determination in Carolyn's chest surged. She couldn't let fear anchor her down, not with Jade and the Hell's Angels standing firm beside her. Maybe, Carolyn replied, her voice steadier than she felt. But we'll fight for what we believe in. And that makes a difference. At that moment, the rumble of more engines echoed, drawing focus from the unfolding confrontation. Tension rippled through the crowd as a parade of bikes rolled in a reinforcements routine for the Hells Angels. Jade's eyes widened, and a fierce grin spread across her face. Looks like we're not as alone as you thought. The rival gang's intimidation began to falter, their bravado dimmed by the sheer numbers drawing into the fray. Fear danced in their eyes now, realizing they faced not just a single woman, but an entire army united behind a cause. As the roar intensified, Carolyn felt a rush of adrenaline. It wasn't just about surviving anymore, it was about claiming their space, honoring those lost, and standing up against the encroaching darkness. The fight was only just beginning, but before they could charge forward, a shout erupted from behind them, a voice laden with urgency, carrying a terrible weight. "Wait! We need to talk." The air snapped tight with anticipation as Carolyn spun to face whoever dared interrupt this moment. And that was when she saw him, the rival leader's brother, someone from the past that she thought would stay buried. The fear gripping her heart morphed into dread as old scars throbbed with new life. What was he doing here, and what did he want? The collective gasp surged through the crowd like a tidal wave, an abrupt shift that stole the breath from Carolyn's lungs. She had recognized him instantly, the ghost from her past, standing there, shrouded in darkness and mischief. Billy. His sharp jawline and the mocking smirk sliced through the tension, and suddenly what felt like a battle turned into something more personal. "Billy?" Carolyn's voice emerged as a tremor, barely above a whisper. Memories flooded in, twisting between dread and heartbreak. They had once shared laughter, plans for a future that now seemed so far gone, but betrayal had tainted those moments. And now he stood there as the harbinger of chaos, the brother of her adversary. He stepped closer, his hands held up in a gesture that almost seemed peaceful. "Carolyn, let us not do this. Not again," he urged, his voice low but steady. Behind him, the rival gang shifted uneasily, caught between their duty and the charged atmosphere swirling around. "Not do what?" Carolyn shot back, her fists clenching. "You think we're just going to forget everything? How you walked away and left me to pick up the pieces? It's not that simple." His eyes darted nervously past her to the gathering storm of Hell's Angels. "If I could take it back enough." Jade interjected, stepping forward, fury radiating from her. "You don't get to stand there and pretend like this is just some misunderstanding. You came looking for trouble, and now you..." Billy cut her off, his gaze turning icy. "I came looking for my brother. It's too late for him, but think about it, we can stop this before it goes too far." His words hung heavy in the air, a compelling plea wrapped in desperation. Carolyn felt her heart race, a conflicting mix of anger and an old flicker of care. "You think you can just come back and spin a nice story? People don't just forget the past, Billy. They carry it. Like chains." His expression tightened. "I know. But I don't want to carry this anymore. I want to end the cycle." There was sincerity in his tone, but could she trust it? The whispers of betrayal rang loud in her ears. The rival gang's leader watched closely, the uncertain tension shifted, and he began to evaluate his options. "Talk. Between what, the girl and the traitor? You really think that can save you?" He pushed forward, eyes glinting with malice. "Shut up." Billy retaliated, and Carolyn felt a surge of disbelief at the sight of this man. The one she once supported stood now as a wild card among wolves. Suddenly, the rumble from the bikes grew into the forefront of her mind. The Hells Angels' backup poured in, a sea of leather and steel, brothers ready to defend their own and loyal to a fault. Their presence surged, a thunderstorm of defiance. Carolyn's heart pounded. This was a dangerous crossroads. The choices spun into an intricate dance of loyalty and revenge, of survival against a tide threatening to swallow them whole. "What do you want, Billy?" Carolyn demanded, firm yet lost in the whirlwind of emotions brewing within her. "What does it take to stop this madness?" He swallowed hard, hesitating before he finally spoke. "You know the truth, Carolyn. The truth will always bring us together or tear us apart," Jade interjected, her voice cold as ice. The rival gang leader smirked, pocketing the fading possibilities. Looks like we're at an impasse. But make no mistake, only one side gets to leave intact. The air crackled with energy, and everything hung in the balance. Would Carolyn find the strength to navigate treachery and reconciliation, or would the weight of the past drown them all? Before she could respond, another sound emerged from the dark one that sent chills racing down her spine. A siren, sharp and piercing, riding the night as if foreboding the very end of everything they had built. Too late for talk. Jade roared, rallying the Hell's Angels, and with that, Carolyn felt the world shift beneath her. An urgent decision loomed, the fight, the history, and the ghosts from her past converged like an avalanche. What would she choose? Would she salvage the connections that still flickered? Or let the fire consume everything? The siren wailed in the distance, urgency edging its way into every heart present. The Hell's Angels, a wall of leather and chrome, flexed and shifted, ready for whatever storm brewed ahead. Carolyn felt their collective focus on her, a pressure building like the weight of a dam about to burst. She looked at Billy, his eyes narrowing, searching for her answer, for a resolve that could halt the impending chaos. "Do you really think you can just talk your way out of this?" Jade spat, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "You're risking everything by being here." Billy's jaw clenched. "If it means saving lives, I'll risk it all. We can unite, Carolyn. They don't have to die today." He took a step toward her, desperation etched in the lines of his face. But behind him, the gang's leader, simmering with malice, threw back his head and laughed. "Ah, sweet naivete. Unity. After everything. You think they'll listen to a traitor?" "Shut up!" Carolyn screamed. Enough with the taunts. Her heart pounded in her chest, roaring like the engines around her. If she was ever going to stand firm against the whirlwind, it was now. The Hell's Angels roared in agreement, a chorus of unity that sent shivers down Carolyn's spine. She could feel their loyalty, their readiness to follow her lead, yet doubt gnawed at her. What if Billy was right? What if an olive branch could be stretched down through the bloodied history that chained them? But trust was a fragile thing, and trust in Billy seemed impossible. The rival gang leader took a step closer, fingers twitching near his waistband where weapons probably lay hidden. "You won't have to wait long to find out who leaves this place in one piece," he sneered, eyes darting from Carolyn to Billy. "Make your move. But know this: only blood will prove loyalty here." A chill crept into Carolyn's bones. The countdown had begun. The time for idle words was past. She took a deep breath and waited through the storm brewing inside her. "Billy, if we want to change this, I need to know you're not just playing me. I won't fall for your lies again." "I'm not," he insisted, his voice firm and full of an urgency that was contagious even amidst uncertainty. "I can prove it. But we need to act together, not against each other. We can stop this, right here, tonight." The varied emotions swirled deep in Carolyn, challenging her to recall every shred of history with Billy. The ache of betrayal, the sweet pull of shared dreams. It was a dizzying concoction. She locked eyes with Jade, who stared back with fiery defiance, unwilling to back down. The sound of fresh motorcycle engines revving grew louder, like an army marching toward them. From the shadows, more riders emerged, forming an imposing line behind Billy. The Angels were rallying under a banner of brotherhood, a sign of defiance stretching before the crude reality of danger. "Make your decision, Carolyn," Jade urged, each syllable laced with tension. "This isn't just about you anymore." Pressure mounted in Carolyn's chest as she scanned the sea of faces, searching for hope. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown ticking away. Could she risk it all again? Could she trust where trust had failed before? In that moment, just as words were about to burst forth, a loud crash shattered the night. Glass shattered nearby, followed by a chorus of shouts mixed with the whir of revving engines. Eyes widened in horror as chaos erupted. "What now?" Carolyn gasped, adrenaline racing through her veins. "Looks like they aren't waiting for your answer," Billy whispered, panic flashing through him. As shadows loomed closer with violent intent, Carolyn's world spiraled into chaos. The moment had come. The ground beneath her was crumbling, and she had one precious heartbeat left to decide who to stand with, and then the ground rumbled beneath them, shaking the very convictions that held them in place. Would she weave the threads of a fragile alliance, or would it all come crashing down once and for all? In the midst of the chaos, the echoes of shattered glass reverberated through the air like a war cry. Carolyn's heart pounded like a drum, urgency making her pulse race. She felt the fear creeping in, but she shoved it aside. This was the moment, fight or flight. "Get behind me," Thor commanded, his fierceness a shield against the encroaching threat. Carolyn locked eyes with him, taking a deep breath as clarity surged within her. This wasn't just about her, it was about everyone she cared for. The rival gang surged forward, their faces twisted in malicious excitement, hungry for violence. The air thickened with tension as Hell's Angels flanked Carolyn, their loyalty palpable. Jade stood with substance beside her, the grit in her stance burned, a silent promise of resoluteness. "Now!" Thor shouted, and action erupted. The Hell's Angels charged, a wall of leather and chrome leading the way into the chaos. Carolyn found herself pulled into the whirlwind, adrenaline thrumming in her veins. The confrontation was here. Billy's plea echoed in her mind, but there was no time to ponder. She fought through the mayhem, fists clenched, standing tall amid the storm of bodies, fists, and metal. Each confrontation pushed her limits harder than the last, each connection forged in that moment solidified her choice to fight. Bullets flew and motorcycle engines roared as the clash turned into a full-scale brawl. Carolyn ducked, weaving between punches and determinedly positioning herself alongside Thor and the others. Every ounce of bravery coursed through her as she threw her own punches, each adrenaline-fueled surge propelling her further into the fray. This was her battle now, not just for survival but for acceptance, for finding her place in a world that had started to accept her. "Fight, Carolyn. Stand strong." The voice of Jade rang through the chaos, mingled with the cries of the fallen souls, scrambling to stay upright. The intensity burned like wildfire, igniting all around her. But just as hope tethered itself frailly inside her heart, the rival leader reappeared, using the distraction as a chance to regroup. He scanned the chaos with calculation, eyes fierce. "This isn't over. Turn tails." He yelled, raining terror as multiple riders surged forward, focusing their fury relentlessly. In that vital moment of desperation, Carolyn spotted Billy's frame darting through the chaos, determination flooding his eyes. "Work together!" He shouted as he swung at an approaching rival, but the gang around him began to retreat, confusion mingling with fear. "No, hold the line." She caught his gaze, this was his chance to prove himself. Taking a deep breath, Carolyn steadied her shaking hands. "Billy. We can't let them break us. Stand your ground." Contention spiraled, urgency combusting around her. They had faced down danger collectively, their bond had grown through their fight. The Hell's Angels stayed focused, a response galvanized in loyalty and trust. Then, as if the universe had commanded, towers of light emerged like guardian angels from the dark. Sirens wailed menacingly, shadows of law enforcement swirling into a space that felt dedicated to battle. The frantic tension stretched thin, divided loyalties burned in the air. Fight or surrender. The rival leader looked towards the oncoming police, anger bursting forth. "Back down!" he yelled desperately. They hesitated. The feigned bravado evaporated as the authorities advanced, outnumbering the rival gang, who felt the power of the law slice through their intent. "This isn't over," the rival leader spat as he clutched his gang. Unlike the reality of the angels behind Carolyn, the menace withdrew, ego-laden, unwilling but unable to allow their aggression to continue in the face of LAW. In the aftermath, noise subsided, revealing the whispers of disbelief among the townsfolk. Carolyn felt buoyed by her connection with the Hell's Angels, emboldened by their bravery, and discovered strength she never knew she had. They had forged a family in the crucible of chaos. Jade stood beside her now, confidence shining with strength, and Thor leaned in, pride reflected in his stare. You held your own, Carolyn. You didn't just survive, you lead us. Billy stood nearby, eyes searching hers, filled with both remorse and a flicker of hope. Can we really move past this? He asked, voice low and strained. Carolyn met his gaze, taking in every fiber of the past they shared. Maybe, she replied, her heart still tethered to pain but opening to healing. But trust doesn't come cheap. Show me you've changed. The remains of the town survived the storm, and reminders of their collective struggle were there wrapped in the bonds of newfound unity. Connections forged in darkness brightened with the dawn as she turned to Thor and Jimmy, all of them ready for whatever came next. Let us go home, she said, a tentative smile breaking through, courage lighting the way. We have work to do. The road ahead promised battles, but she knew they would face it together. This was the beginning of something brighter. Now, if you've enjoyed this unexpected finale, listen up. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support and never miss another exclusive story. They're coming fast and thrilling. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, letting everyone know how much you loved this conclusion. And please, flood the comments section with your reactions and theories. I want to hear every thought you have. What do you think will happen next? Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this heart-pounding ending. Go on, let us spread the excitement.